All right. Well, welcome everybody. We'll get started. We're still some people coming into the room, but I want to make the most of our time here together. Welcome to the Interested in a Career in the Music Industry event. My name is Dr. Brian Ukulik, and I'm one of the professional development and career coaches in Carolina. I'll be the host today, but obviously I'm not the star of the show. But this event is being recorded. I want to make sure everyone is aware of that. But during the event, feel free to send any questions you have into the chat box. We'll also open the floor at the end for anyone who wants to ask their questions for Sam on video. We'll probably go to those people first, then go to the chat box after that. But at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce one of my best friends, Sam Sumser. He's going to be sharing his experience transitioning from being a marketing major to working in the music industry. So a little bit about Sam, working across multiple genres. Sam's a versatile writer, producer, and top liner. His contributions to Lizzo's "Cause I Love You" earned an Album of the Year AMA nod and Best Urban Contemporary Album Grammy. I'm sure everyone's heard the song Juice by Lizzo, and he was one of the writers of that song. But most recently, Sam's worked with Keith Urban, Breland, Doja Cat, Pitbull, Jason Derulo, Usher, Megan Thee Stallion, Nelly, Ariana Grande, and more. So, Sam, thank you for spending the time with us in UNC Honors today. We are absolutely thrilled to have you. And I could go on and on in terms of who you've worked with and in terms of what you've done in the industry, but I'm sure everyone wants to hear it from you. So, to start out today, just what is your story? What inspired you to get into music, and how do you end up where you are today?
Hey guys, thanks for having me, Brian, in class. Um, so I grew up with like the musical itch. I always was banging on things, and my mom got me instruments young. God bless my little sister for putting up with that kind of noise. Got into bands in high school and was playing in bands, and quickly discovered that I loved the writing part and hated the band part. It's like it felt like it was bands are kind of like group projects where I was the one doing all the work and they were all getting the A's, and everybody knows that. Um, so that quickly became me trying to write for other local bands in our little local scene, which was Northern Virginia. So I would write for local bands and people I knew who were willing to let me write for local bands. And as you can guess, bands are like really precious with their music. So it was tough, but I tried to work those circles, which then led to meeting local other people trying to write songs anywhere within like a driving like where I could drive within a day, and then that turned into driving to Nashville. Eventually, I got my first cut in LA. This was before I even moved there. It was a Jason Derulo album cut, which kind of opened the door for me to at least. That's when I decided to move to LA. Uh, and network and meet everybody and sign my first publishing deal, and and that was 2014. Lived in LA for 5 years, loved it, wanted to be closer to Virginia, love what's going on in Nashville and the music scene right now. So I decided to move here 3 years ago, right in time for the pandemic and not leaving my house. But in a lot of ways, and I can get to this too, the pandemic was good for my career. As a producer, you can do a lot from your laptop. So, yeah, I think that was the quick version. I know I probably skipped a lot of things. So, Brian, you can ask me questions if whatever I missed. But that's like the brief version, the simplest.
Great, great. And so something that a lot of people don't know about you is that we went to school together at James Madison. And so for your undergrad, you were actually a marketing major. And being
Uh-huh.
that music seems like it's such an unrelated field to marketing, but you actually credit going to college and your degree as being a big part of your success. So how do you make the most of college, and why do you credit the marketing degree as being a big part of it?
Um, well, let me start by saying I started as a bio pre med major, which was an awful idea. For anyone out there that's still deciding their major, you don't need to have it figured out. It's scary. I remember just like being so stressed out about deciding what felt like the rest of my life with my major. But as soon as organic chemistry hit, I switched to business, which was the best idea. So yeah, I think like the business classes and the marketing classes honestly can help with any job, but for my job especially, um, the simplest things like knowing how to like make an invoice, or or with marketing, it's more about in my genre, it's like how do you differentiate from everybody else trying to be a producer or a songwriter? Because like there's so many people trying to do it. So what do I do that's special, and how do I make sure everybody knows that? And I learned that in marketing classes, like even just from learning how Campbell's soup was marketed correctly. Just like I can do that with, will I make this kind of beat? And maybe I should have called myself like Chunky Soup Beats or something. Um, that being said, college also teaches you how to persevere. I mean, college is hard. It teaches you not to give up. I mean, hopefully no one here feels like giving up, but if you do, keep going. You're gonna get through it. Um, but yeah, marketing. I think just building a brand these days. Like, luckily, I started in this business before social media was really thriving. But I think building a brand is everything with any business, and networking. If I didn't already say this, networking, just going out, and I would this is so cringy, but I would cold call. I would like go on MySpace at the time, or Twitter, and any email, any assistant, any intern I could find their email, I would just cold call their email, or have my friend pretend he was my manager and walk in the building and drop off CDs. I'm really showing my age right now, but they would drop off CDs. Just networking, and then following up on emails without being overbearing. Or another thing that was great was like learning how to professionally like correspond. I don't know if you guys do it, but we had a really awesome class about job interviews, and in that they taught you, it was resumes and things like that, but it was also like how to send an email without coming across like a dumbass, excuse my French, but um, and not to just like email somebody 10 times a day until I get a response, and things like that. I don't know if I answered the question. I kind of lost my train of thought, but
No, you're good. You're good. And so something that when we were speaking about this earlier in getting ready to do this event today, something you said that I thought was super interesting, given that all the talent involved in the music industry, you're working with some of the most talented people that exist. You actually said that your talent was the least important thing in terms of you getting into the music industry. What did you mean by that?
um, I don't want to say least important, but I would say everything comes second to like the networking part of it. I think you can be the next Mozart, but if nobody knows who you are, you're never going to be Mozart. I mean, at the end of the day, once you get in the room, you got to have some kind of talent. You got to have a product. But I think getting in that room is the hardest part, and unfortunately, that has nothing to do with talent. So again, that does come back to, like I was saying, like the networking, marketing, and convincing people why they should give you a shot. And then once you get the shot, you got to have the talent. So you got to be ready for it. And some people slip past, and some people get lucky, but for the most part, the most important thing is like, how do I get seen? Or how do, if it's not music, it's how do I get my product seen? How do I get my beat seen? How do I get my song seen? So yeah, talent definitely is not the first thing that got me to where I'm at. I like to
Yeah,
think I have talent, but it definitely was a secondary
yeah,
thing.
I did it. And you talked earlier about college, being stressful, trying to pick out your major, then trying to take classes and academics on top of your music. So how did you balance the two while you were in college in terms of academics, but also trying to focus on the career you wanted to have in music?
This is gonna be annoying, but you have to believe me when I say you have more free time now in college than you ever will again. I think the older you get, the more it's like, I don't know where the day goes. Honestly, I feel like I answer one email and it's like time to go to bed. So that being said, it is a lot. College is hard. I was a like obsessed with getting good grades, so I was in the library all the time. I think just like any business, I really wanted it. And so I would make the time. I would, instead of going out to parties, that's college was kind of when I got into the producing side of music. I always wrote songs, which is like the lyrics and the melody, but production is like everything you hear that's not the vocals, if that makes sense. So like I play instruments, and mixing, mastering, all that stuff. Um, what was I saying? So I would not go to parties, and I would like make really bad beats, and I would get home late from the library, and although I wanted to go to bed or watch TV or hang with my friends, I would still do that once in a while because you got to have some kind of social life, but um, it was important enough where I would sacrifice an hour of sleep to practice the craft or develop the product. Or I think you just have to make it work somehow. I know that's such an annoying stereotypical answer, but it is. I mean, life throws you all kinds of stuff. There's never the right time to just, you don't just get a year off. You got to make money. You got to go to class. I think you got to make it work if you want it bad enough.
Got it. Got it. And so, I mean, you're in the studio right now as we speak, obviously spending a lot of time there. You're there almost every day. You're always writing or
Hmm.
producing. How do you stay creative? What do you do to either be creative or sort of like writer's block? How do you try to get out of that?
Yeah, that's like something I struggle with all the time. For me, therapy. um, but also these days it's easier because you have voicemails on your iPhone, or you can come up with ideas like at all times of the day and save them in your phone. So if you do have writer's block, you can go back to your phone and pull some random. Half the time they're bad ideas, but you can at least start somewhere. Um, but these days, when I have trouble staying creative, I like it's hard to do because you feel like, at least I feel like with my job I've gotten to a certain point and worked hard enough where I don't want to lose any momentum or go backwards or um, this sounds dumb, but have people forget about you in the industry. But I've these days been like, I need to go live. I need to get out of the studio and not be making music. And I can't write about life if I'm not living it, right? You can't write about, like, I'm in Nashville. You can't write about going to a bar and having a couple beers, or write about a fight with your girl, or if you're not doing it. I never get in fights with my wife, but um,
Right. Of course not. Of
yeah,
course.
yeah. So that's
Um,
what I would say. I would say stepping back, taking time away, even some days when I know I have to do something, just like going for a 15-minute walk.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Cool. And so you've worked with a ton of different artists. I was talking about naming some of them earlier, but we're talking all different genres and things like that. So kind of a two-part question. One, what is it like working in different genres? But also, what's it like working with artists when they walk in the room? It's like, oh my gosh, there is Lizzo or
yeah,
Nelly or whoever it is.
yeah. This actually ties into a couple of your other questions, which is good. The thing that I tried to market early on was the cross genre stuff. When I started out, it was like, these days, most people, you guys included, probably like have Taylor Swift and then 21 Savage on the same playlist, and it's not weird. For me growing up, it was more like, oh, I listen to rock and not rap though, or yeah, I like pop, but I'll never listen to country, and I was never like that. I always listened to everything, and so I had success early on, blending genres together, which I think a lot of the biggest artists, it's hard to define a genre for them, like Billie Eilish or Lizzo, or just a lot of the new like big names. It's just hard to put them in a box. Doja Cat, and so that's part one. Part two is that's actually what does keep me creative, is switching genres, and like I can write some country songs, and then when I go back to the pop stuff, it's like I have an edge on the lyric game, or vice versa. I can go into a country room where I know the songwriters are going to be amazing, but I'll have like some fresh production ideas from working in the pop area, or my 808s hit harder because I was in Atlanta. I think that gives me my edge. At least that's what I'm telling myself.
Gotcha.
What was the part two?
I was gonna say, what's it like working with people where it's
Got
like
it.
everyone knows them?
Um, I've gotten to a point where I can keep my cool, and I always have a good poker face, but a lot of the artists I work with, for the most part, haven't, like, when we did the Lizzo stuff, she was Lizzo, but she hadn't blown up the way she has now. So I was a fan. I had heard some of her stuff, but it wasn't like Adele walked in. Um, I mean, it's bizarre how quickly you normalize stuff like that. I was lucky enough to go on over the pandemic. I went to Australia with Keith Urban and wrote with Keith Urban for 2 weeks in his house in Australia. That was a moment where I was kind of like, what the hell is happening?
Right.
Nelly, like some of the legends, like because I grew up listening to Nelly, so having him like in my studio was a cool moment. I'd say it's more of just like a good moment for me to sit back and realize like, okay, I've done something right.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And
There are certain artists like that I haven't worked with. Like if Bruno Mars walked in, I would be so nervous. I would be so nervous. And there are times where you get to work with a bigger artist and you don't nail it, and you feel like you didn't nail it for like a day or two.
Gotcha.
Um,
Gotcha.
I'd say you're nervous, but like properly nervous, I guess.
Gotcha. And now with some like, for example, probably the biggest hit you've been involved with is Juice by Lizzo. On a night like that, where is it just everything seems to come together, or you're just putting as much as you can out there and seeing what sticks?
Um, yeah, those sessions, a session is just, I don't know if this is if, I don't want to sound like I'm like explaining things that you already know, but a session is what I call when you get together with like other writers or an artist and write a song. Um, I'd say like just a few times a year you have a session like that where everybody in the room knows like, oh my God, like we have something special. Um, and all the dots connected, all the stars fall into place. And then the crazy thing about my industry is that's step one. Step two is everything has to go right. Like their label has to want it to come out, and the marketing has to work, and then the listeners have to connect with it. So you could feel like you had that. I've had a few times where I felt the same way I felt when we did Juice, and it came out and did nothing. Or I've had a song that I was like, this song's okay, and it came out and like did better than I thought. Um, but for the most part, in the room, everyone there is doing it professionally. So if you all feel that, there is this energy that's like, holy shit, this is something.
Yeah,
Juice
that's
was
cool.
definitely one of those. I still have videos on my phone of like us like freaking out when she was like recording vocals.
Gotcha. And you also
Yeah.
let me know in the most inconspicuous way possible. You're like, hey, have you heard that Juice song on the radio?
Yeah,
But that was a
I'm
cool
not a
moment for
great
sure.
self promoter when it comes to that. I don't like bragging or feeling like I'm bragging, but
Gotcha.
I let
Gotcha.
Instagram do that.
So we'll open it up questions for students. So if you do have a question, you want to either raise your hand in the Zoom or turn your camera on or ask it in the chat, that's totally fine. And while people are starting to prep that, just any general advice you have for students right now? I mean, anything you'd recommend that they're doing, not doing, or if they're interested in this industry, things that they should be aware of?
Um, am I answering that question first?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you repeat the question one more time,
Just
please?
any overall, just overall advice for anyone in college that's interested in getting to this industry.
In this industry, okay. I think make sure you love it. It is really tough, and it is one of those jobs where it's like people grow up wanting to be rock stars, and so it's so competitive. So you got to love it first because chances are you're going to be doing it for a long time without making like any money, which is fine. Um, but it makes it hard to keep with it when you're trying to pay bills and your friends have like other jobs and can go get cool happy hour drink and you're like drinking natty light still. Um, and then I think interning or moving to a music city is important. It's a hard thing to do, moving away from the people you love, but I think places like Nashville and LA and Atlanta and Miami and Austin, I think you got to be there to really network. Like you can run into people just by chance. You can run into the guy that works at the publishing company, and that doesn't really happen in other places. It might, but I've never heard of that. So I think finding internships, being willing to work for free, not being above anything. Like if you want to be a songwriter and you meet a songwriter that you feel isn't great, I mean, work with them. It gives you practice, and you never know who they know, or they might become a great songwriter. Or um, so I'd say stick with it and just network. Like I said earlier, networking is everything.
Great, awesome. All right, so if you want to turn your camera on, if you have a question, Malika, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had two questions, like quick questions. The
Sure.
first one is if you're more of a songwriter, but you haven't gotten into the producing aspect of it, would you recommend like producing because it would improve like the product that you're trying to give? And then secondly, I know you've done like some cross language stuff.
Uh huh.
So in that aspect, do you write your stuff in English first and then get it translated, or do you work with the artist and give them like the idea and they change it up into the language which they want to sing in?
Sure. The first question, I think you don't have to do both. I think it can help, but I think early on, finding what you're good at and really focusing on that first, especially here in Nashville, a lot of people are just songwriters. Like they have a guitar or an instrument, or maybe even not, and they might just write lyrics. They might like be the worst singer on earth. But I think focusing on what you're good at first. I think these days it helps to know a little bit of everything, just like any job probably. But I wouldn't worry about that. If are you a songwriter?
Yeah, just mainly lyrics. Yeah.
Yeah,
Lyrics,
I mean,
yeah.
if you feel like you're a lyric person, it's good to know everything and try to work on everything. But um, I would try and just keep getting better at the lyric stuff. Lyric people are hard to come by. Yeah, if you find a great lyric person, that's like their thing. Like I don't, if I'm working with someone and I need a lyric person, I'm like not gonna say, man, but they also need to like be able to produce, if that helps. And then the second question, um, we write it in English, or I'm in the room with someone that speaks the other language. I think all the songs you're probably referencing, we wrote without the artist. Actually, there's two ways to do it. The best way is you're writing with the artist because you're directly in with them. You know, you can tell if they like something or don't like it. And the other way is called pitching a song, which is like me and another songwriter or another producer or a few of us in a room trying to write a song, and then oh, we heard Demi Lovato's looking for a song that's similar, and we'll send that over. And that's a little harder because there's a bunch of gatekeepers you have to get through before she even hears it. Um, so with the second language songs, I think it was all writers. So we would go actually. Some of the Latin songs I've done, I was in the room with two guys who couldn't speak English, and I can't really speak Spanish, so it's pretty crazy. We wrote a song, and it was kind of just going off vibes. Like I knew we were doing something great, but I had no clue. They could have been saying Sam's terrible the whole time. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Kennedy, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. So I am a music major here at UNC. I'm
Awesome.
pursuing sort of a career in the classical style of like opera singing, which is really fun. I'm going to grad school for that in the fall, but songwriting has always been really important to me. And throughout college, I've kind of edited and revised, and now I'm really proud to have finished 4 songs that I want to make into an EP.
Amazing.
So kind of related to the production question, I am not a producer. So now the
Uh-huh.
question becomes, how do I find / get connected to a producer? What kind of producers to look for my specific genre? So any advice you have on that would be great.
And remind me again, the genre is you're saying
Mine's more like indie pop as far as songwriting, but I sing opera more seriously as like a career thing. So
yeah. I'd say if you can't do it, then you find people who can. So I mean, Google and social media, you could find you can either pay people to do it, and it's like everywhere from someone who's probably too expensive to maybe I can swing this to I think the best way is to try out people who are on your same level, like who are trying to find an artist or a songwriter, and you guys work together, and it might not work out, but it might, and then you guys kind of are all of a sudden have a little crew, and a lot of times these crews, like somebody gets discovered and the crew goes with them. But I think that's a good way to get it for cheap as a student. I would say I'm trying to off the top of my head, I can't think of it right now, but there's a bunch of sites where there's like producers looking for work, or like even Reddit. Like just get creative with literally posting, "Hey, I'm a songwriter looking for a producer. I write this type of songs. Like anyone interested?" And see what happens. I think a lot of people early on, even me, like think like, man, if I could just get in with Pharrell, like I'll bust through the gate. But it's really more like finding your people at the same level and coming up together, and because you can, it's easier to try, like it's easier to fail with other people who are learning at that level. I mean, you're always learning, but Pharrell, like if I went into the room with Pharrell 10 years ago, I probably would be a waiter right now. Yeah. I hope that helps. It is kind of like you got to do a little work. You got to just go online and Instagram or Twitter or even, I mean, I see all sorts of producers and songwriters on TikTok, unfortunately. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you. That was
We'll hop back into the student question in just a second, but one question from the chat is, can you briefly run us through your vocal chain, preamps, compressors, etc.? And also, is that a U87 in the back?
Nice. Who asked that? Somebody that knows their stuff.
Torin in the chat.
Oh, who aren't in it?
Oh no, Torin is her name. She's in the chat.
Oh, Torin. Yeah, let me pull it up. That is a U87. Good call. It's not anything special. I feel like to go through like the settings right now would be boring for everybody else. I'll say this at the end too. Feel free, everybody, to hit me on Instagram. I try and respond to everybody. I can get more specific in there, but it's probably similar to what you use. It's probably just, EQ, compression, de-esser, EQ again, maybe one more compressor, and then effects. Hit me on Instagram. I'll give you specifics. I'll break it down for you if you hit me on Instagram, Torin. I do feel like not everybody here would even know what I'm talking about.
It's probably a little bit more advanced than the old Garage Band on your MacBook, trying to plug in the guitar back at JMU. So
yeah, and also for the songwriters who ask where are producers, you need to hit Torin because Torin knows what he's talking about. If you saw the mic, the U87 is the mic in the background for everybody that didn't know that.
Awesome. Brandon, you had a question?
Yeah. Hey, Sam. I had two quick ones. I guess number one, how hard was it to learn kind of like the mixing and mastering aspect? Because I'm much more of a lyric and melody kind of guy, and I've been producing for a few years now, and I keep getting better. But like, how hard was that for you to pick up at the beginning?
That was the hardest for me because I don't like that part of it. I mean, to make your stuff sound better, you need to learn it, but I'm more of like the creative, like I want to get the ideas out. Like while I'm mixing, I have another idea. But it's hard, but I mean, YouTube, there's so much on YouTube. I legit would order like these like what are you using? What DAW?
FL.
Yeah, YouTube. But I would get like textbooks. Like this is what I would do in college, no joke. And my friends would go to a party and I would like have these like textbooks that came with little courses, and I would have my DAW, which for everyone asking is like the program on the computer you use to like make the music, digital audio workstation. And I would like legit go through textbooks. That's not a lot of people do that, but if you don't want to do that, YouTube. I think just like as you run into problems, look it up on YouTube and see how other people do it. Try it. It's gonna work sometimes it won't, but that's not the way you would do it next time.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
My second other question is, I know you've already talked about kind of tips for marketing yourself, but I guess any tips for, someone, trying to grow their musical presence if they're like, I'm an extrovert, but I don't really like to promote myself. So any tips on how to kind of get past that hump, and if you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, because that's totally me. I hate if I wasn't in the music business, I wouldn't even have an Instagram. I think it's part of the job. You got to do it. I think you got to force yourself. It's like a lot of people on my side of things are the people behind the scenes for a reason. A lot of people are introverts and don't like to be in the spotlight. So I think there's so many websites where you can upload tracks and people will buy them, or people will there's websites or Reddit subreddits where you can upload a track and have people give you constructive feedback, and they don't know what you look like or who you are. And then once you feel like you're getting somewhere, like make an Instagram, or sometimes that's why people have like producer names. Like you could be a student and not know, and then just be Chunky Soup Beats, and no one's ever gonna know. So the thing is no one remembers the flops. Like you're like, you worry about that, but once you get something good, that's when people start wanting to know who did it. I would just, I think force yourself to do it.
Sam, you're getting a little bit of feedback coming from your mic. Not sure. Right.
Still?
Plug it. Yeah, it's almost like a vacuum in the background.
Hold on. My computer is like overheating. Give me a sec. Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you. Yeah, just a little bit of feedback from the content for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna take like 2 minutes. Maybe we can go hit another question while I.
Yeah,
while
no problem. All right, so Fahad, you had a question?
Yeah, my
Sam,
question is a bit.
Sam, mute your mic while he's asking.
My question is a bit of a more general, like, creative question. It's the first one, or the first part is, how do you kind of flex and train your creative muscle to kind of keep improving on yourself and, kind of learn and make better content or music or songs? And then the second part is, what do you do when you face kind of a creative block in a sense? What do you have like a certain procedure? Do you kind of go out? Do you stop? Do you continue working until it works itself out?
Yeah, and sorry, I'm trying to fix this fan.
Yeah, all good.
I think just doing it. I think, if I'm being honest, like 98% of my ideas are straight garbage. I think a hard part for me was learning when they weren't. The difference between a 9 and a 10 is the hardest part to learn. Like, when it's like a 2. But it really needs to be special for it to get cut by an artist or do anything in the world. So I think knowing when it's time to move on from an idea is important. I think just doing it. I think if you have an idea, try it out. Like 20 minutes into it, you are stuck, then it's probably not right. But if you know there's something there, maybe it is right to try and push through it. As far as a creative block, kind of like I was saying before, I think getting out of the studio, living life a little bit, but also finding people to collab with. That's why collaboration is awesome. I used to do it by myself, and now I hate writing by myself because you get stuck, somebody else might be unstuck, and vice versa, which is key. I think collaboration is great.
Right.
Okay, let me get back.
Alex, you have a question?
Yeah, I guess this is like a general question too. Like, I don't really know much about like production, so I was just wondering like what kind of software you use. Like, I know you mentioned DAW earlier, and then like I guess like do you have any recommendations for like free or starter software to play around with, just to see if it's like something I could use?
Yeah, I use Ableton. I started with Logic, but GarageBand is just like the freebie version of Logic, basically. I think there's a free version of Ableton. I think there's a lot of free things out there, and most of them come with basic like plugins or effects or loops you can use to kind of get started. And I think there's like so much you can do within GarageBand or free Ableton, or Pro Tools is the one where you're gonna need a little money, unless you, not saying to do this, but unless you know how to pirate things, don't do it.
We are not advocating that here at all.
We're not advocating that at all. I don't even think that's possible. So, yeah, I think start there, and then once you're feeling like you've reached some kind of ceiling using what you get in the free version, then it's time to upgrade. But they're really, like, I could make a song today in GarageBand, no problem. So if you have a Mac, GarageBand's free.
And then I guess like another question, do you like write your lyrics first, like, or do you have a beat first and then write lyrics to it, or like I guess like how do you like what's your process?
So it's different every time. I have like a document in my phone where I just have like titles and concepts going. But for the most part, it's different every time. I mean, I also have like track starts or like little vibes, like a couple rough drum instrument things. But a lot of times the artist comes into the room and has something in their life they want to talk about, or has a type of song they need, and you kind of let them lead because you're just there to help them get their vision out. But it's different every time. A lot of times people will just get on the mic and do melody stuff, and the melodies are inspiring to people, and they think, well, that sounds like you're talking about Chunky Soup. It's different every time. Whatever comes naturally to you, go with it.
Josh, you had a question?
Sorry about the fan, guys. I have no idea how to turn it down.
It's all good.
Yeah, so I had a two-part question, which you kind of already answered the first part, which was how pivotal you thought it was, like moving to a Music City hub. But I guess my second part of that would be, do you recommend like different cities for like a different career path? Like if you really want to go the songwriter route, like does it make sense to be in Nashville, or like you think it really matters?
There's instances where it would matter, like if you want to be in country music, Nashville's the place. But other than that, I think just getting in, there's so many people are going back and forth between the cities. I think just it's a tough enough industry to get in general. Like if you can get in somewhere, do it. Or if it's easier, a little bit closer to home or something to go to one, you can try it out. I mean, I know a lot of people that start in one city and move to the other. I did that. It depends on what you want to do, but I think for the most part, just getting to one of those cities. I'd say Nashville, LA, and Atlanta are the best. I'm biased. I think Nashville and LA probably are the best, but I know plenty of people that have done it in other cities.
Brighton, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks for being here and being willing to talk with us.
For sure.
So I remember you said, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you were in bands for a while and you were like doing band things as well as writing, and you liked writing more. And then the thing that you said next was that you got your first like gig in LA, like working with Jason Derulo, I think you said after. Can you explain on the gap between those things a little bit? Like what do you think got you that first thing, and how big was that thing compared to like the next biggest thing that you worked on that may have been like fuel for getting?
Totally. So that's a good question. It kind of goes back to what I was saying about finding people who are willing to work with you in your area, who are kind of at the same level. And even if you feel like you're past where they are at, or they're too good or whatever, if they're willing to work with you, do it. Because the way the Jason Derulo thing happened was one of the people I met in my hometown. We wrote and it clicked, and we started writing a bunch of songs together. And she moved to LA before I did. So she was out there like getting in meetings and stuff, and she played, because lots of her songs were with me, she played a song that someone heard and was like, Jason Derulo needs this. We didn't write that with Jason Derulo. So because I had a bunch of people like that, like someone else went out and network, like my network was their network kind of, if that makes sense. The Jason Derulo thing was big and it opened doors, but it wasn't like I'm set for life now and I never need another job. It definitely got me to the next level. And then I'd say the next few things were all kind of like, these days it's all about singles. Back in the day, like you could have an album cut on an album and like make a career out of it. These days, kind of need to get on the radio still, or have like some massive song to make money to be able to pay your rent. So I was getting in the mix, but I think my expectations were like, this is it, Jason Derulo, I'm the greatest of all time, and I was so wrong. And like I didn't really have that breakthrough moment. That was 2014, Jason Derulo, and I didn't really have that breakthrough moment until like 2019. So it was like 5 more years of grinding it out and feeling like I'm close, but not close at all. And I think being realistic, there's no shortcut. I think it's like these gradual steps that to everybody else, once you make it, feels like, holy crap, this guy just like is killing it. But there are just these series of like a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. It sounds like you're also emphasizing like the network a lot as well. Like working with more and more people.
Yeah, I mean, if you impress somebody, they talk about it, or they play the song, or you guys write a great song, they're gonna play the song for everybody, and people are gonna ask, who'd you do that with, and then they want to work with you. that works for artists and labels too. Like if you, Lizzo's the best example. Like when that came out, everybody was like, who wrote that song? And I got in with other artists because of it. Because Lizzo's like one of those artists that other artists want to be. But there's smaller versions of that too. That's the ultimate version. There's, I think, like someone in your hometown, you guys write a killer song, they write with another songwriter in your hometown, all of a sudden you got two go-to songwriters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
And I actually want to keep
Sure.
this theme of Brighton's question with the networking. You talked earlier, Sam, about all of the cold emails you used to send to just different labels and people.
God.
What did you say in those emails?
Kept it respectful and professional. Just like literally just, dear blah blah blah, my name's Sam Sumster, I'm an upcoming songwriter. I would love to meet, I would just try and get in rooms. So I would love to stop by and meet you and either play you some stuff or tell you why you should listen, or I'm sure there's more creative ways of doing it. Like you could just write some crazy subject line and get them to look at it. But in my experience, if you're overzealous, they're not going to do it. I think being professional and respectful, and like I said, like I learned how to do that in business school. There's people that will hit me on Instagram and it's like, yo, like check out this. And I'm like, I do check it out, but if someone's like, hey, would you mind checking this out? It's a big difference for me. Cause I'm like, I have no idea what I'm clicking now. Yo, check this out. That could be some crazy shit that I don't want to see, or, so I think just keeping it respectful and getting to the point a little bit, but just start small, just try and meet these people first. You don't need to send 20 songs. You can attach a song, but make sure it's just like one of your best songs.
Great. Chiesa, you had a question?
Did you mean me?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Did I pronounce your name horribly wrong?
Yeah, it's Chiazo.
Chiazo, sorry. Go for it.
Yeah, this is sort of a weird question, but I've always been curious about like data management with, you have like 1,000 voice memos, or like you have all these songs and ideas. So I'm curious, how do you sort of organize everything and like keep track of maybe a great idea you may have had like 10 months ago versus something you did today, and like keep things in line, especially when you're mixing genres?
Yeah. Voice memos specifically, I think plane rides for me was a big thing. I can't do anything else, so that's when I wish I was better at it. I wish I could tell you like, yeah, this is what you should do, but I'm so bad at it. So now I just have like 300. If it's a really special idea, I have like a separate folder that's, I know like these are money. But like plane rides or downtime, instead of like watching TV, or maybe even if you're watching TV or something, I just go through them and A, if it's garbage, delete it. B, I'll label it like melody idea, pop, or country lyric idea, or like, so I know. That being said, I'll go with the, like if I'm going into a session where I know I'll probably be leaned on for the country lyric, then I'll go through some of those and try and like come in with a couple ideas, just refresh my mind, so I have some things to pull from in case I need to. But other than that, yeah, I think staying organized is crucial. I wish I was better at it. I'm getting better at it. Sometimes you can't.
Another question from Tori in the chat. So thought on the Kenny Beats Discord for feedback and critique.
Do it. You can get on that thing. I mean, Kenny Beats is like a legend for doing that. Yeah, do it. Anything like that. What he's talking about is Kenny Beats, who's a massive producer. Yeah, like kind of what I was saying earlier, like I said subreddits or something, but you can go on and submit beats when he does it, and he'll be there live with a massive producer like Timbaland or somebody huge, and they'll listen, and everybody in the chat can comment on it, but Kenny Beats and Timbaland will break down your beat on why they love it or why they hate it. It's always respectful, and you'll learn a ton. I think even just watching that, like if you can't get your beat on it, like listening, if you listen to the beat and you're like, man, this is trash, but then they're like, this is amazing, well, you got to like realign what you're doing.
Great. Question from Malika in the chat. What are your opinions on using TikTok to grow your brand and audience?
I mean, I think as long as it's authentic to who you are or what your brand is, do it. I mean, people are TikTok. If you don't think TikTok is a tool, you're out of your mind. I mean, it may not be the most proud thing that some people say, but if that gets you from point A to point B, do it. I think these days a lot of artists, I do hear the frustration with TikTok because some of these people they aren't TikTok. And I think that there is something to be said about just staying authentic. The listeners and the viewers know the difference. You can't fool anybody. You got to be you. If it's not you, don't try and do it.
Great. Does anyone else have a question for Sam? Torin, did you have another question?
Yes, sir. Mr. Sumser, what do you think inspires you, or first inspired you to know that you wanted to pursue music as a career? I know you had mentioned your switch from bio and pre-med, but what do you think? Was there a specific moment, a weekend, an event? Like what changed it for you?
I always wanted to do music. I just thought that my band was going to be famous. So when the bands didn't work out, I was trying to do like a solo artist thing, which was so bad too. And I think it came down to I had a friend who actually went to college with me as well, who told me about it. He was like, I'm going out to LA to write with somebody. I was like, what do you mean write with somebody? And that's when I didn't even know it was a career. So him telling me, then I deep dived and listened to every interview and podcast and read every book I could. But I think I always had the passion for music. That was always there. It was always going to be music. I think college I was lucky enough to go to college and I'd always treated it like a safety net. I was scared to jump in all the way, which I'm not saying don't do. I think at some point you got to jump, but I always knew it was music. It's just songwriting came. The fact that songwriting could be a career I didn't know about till later. If that answers your question, maybe. Cool.
And we have one of my favorite students on the line here. So another Sam. So Sam, you question for Sam?
Yeah, I have a little question about the collaborative aspect about songwriting. I was kind of curious about because you mentioned how you prefer actually right now to write with other songwriters in the room and you like bouncing ideas off of each other. I was kind of curious how what happens when you have maybe conflicting ideas with other songwriters, or is there ever a point where things just happen to not work out? And
yeah, totally. I think it's just like dating. It's you have to go in knowing it could not work out, and that's how you learn what kind of collaborator you're looking for. But you won't find that out. You won't find the good ones and I shouldn't say good or bad. You won't find the ones that work for you without finding the ones that don't. It's hard because you feel like you're inadequate or you should have been able to pull it off or something. But a lot of times you just got to realize, even at the level that I'm at now, it's I'll have days where it's I know nothing is coming from what we did today, and that's fine. And there might be awesome hangs, and it's just finding that right team, just like a sports team. You could all be amazing by yourself, but if you don't work together good, you're not going to win a game. I think too, this is cheesy, but don't be scared to say bad ideas. It's hard, but sometimes your worst idea triggers the best idea of the day in somebody else.
Question from the chat from Will. Do you ever listen to music for leisure anymore, or do you find yourself analyzing the overall execution?
Great question. I hate to say this, but it's hard for me to listen to new music without over-analyzing it. Either being mad that I didn't think of it, or what did they do that I didn't do right, or how can I do this? So for leisure, I'm listening to stuff I listened to growing up, or the classics, Michael Jackson, Prince, all that, Fleetwood Mac, or podcasts. I'm a podcast guy now because I wish I would give anything to be able to go back to that, but it is tough.
And then Brighton, you had another question?
I think Torin had his hand up before me.
Go for it, Torin.
Thank you. My question was built on an earlier question. Do you ever take song ideas where you may have a difference of opinion and produce it or finish it on your own?
I think you broke up a little bit, but I
Like,
think
if you
what
want
you're
me to,
asking is,
sure.
like, if you bring an idea to the room and you guys don't nail it and you want to try it again somewhere else.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think you can do that. I think making sure you do it the right way so you don't burn bridges. A lot of times for me, if I do that, I wind up just making those people writers on it anyways. It's like kind of impossible sometimes to, like, it would be rare for you to go rewrite it without any of their influence in there. So you can get into a tricky spot if they decide, you know, he screwed us and we want to sue him or something. I think just at the end, if you get far enough in this industry, there's enough pie for everybody to eat. So I think the problem people get into is like thinking, I need to be the sole writer of this now. But it's like, just keep it cool. You never know. The guys you didn't nail it with might become the next Timbaland, and all of a sudden you want to get in the room with them. And I think you can do that. Or just ask them, hey, you know, I was thinking about trying this again. Do you mind? And if that's the case, they don't need to be writers on it. Most people will say yes. Chances are they know you guys didn't nail it anyways.
I think we have time for 2 more questions. So Brighton, I'll go to you.
Okay, so I think there are like so many possible things one could be doing right now, ranging from like instrument and musicianship related things to like producing more specific things and business things. For someone who's like practiced in a few instruments and like writing and has put out an album, but has like zero name, basically, what do you think some of the like most high leverage things one could do right now are?
You're as an artist?
Yeah, I guess more so like wanting to produce for people, like anyone of any genre, really.
I mean, I think it just keeps, I hate to sound redundant, but it just keep going back to try and find, if you're trying to produce, try and find artists that need producers. Like there's people in this chat that need producers, and A, you'll get better, and B, like you never know. Like if an artist blows up that you produce, like that's the straightest route to get there.
Yeah.
Even to this day, I still try and work with new artists because they look at me like I am Timbaland. And Lizzo right now is like going in with Timbaland, right? So I'm competing with Timbaland, but to new artists, I am Timbaland.
Yeah.
And if they explode, I like did the whole album. So I would say just find people at your level and build together. I hope that answered your question. No. I wish there was some shortcut I could give you. I think it's just keep at it, man. If you're passionate about it, just keep doing it. If you make great stuff, people will find it.
Malika?
Yeah, I just had a question about the country music scene.
Sure.
So do you feel like there's space in the country music scene for like new voices or new like perspectives? Because I'm not from the South. I'm not even American, but I really enjoy country music. And so do you feel like there's a space for people who are not of Southern origin or who do not have like that country background to get into that type of music?
Totally. Do you know who Breland is?
Yeah.
So I did his whole album. He's from New Jersey, black kid in country. Like, it is so needed for other views. I think at its core, country music is about storytelling. So I think just tell your story. It doesn't have to be like plowing fields or like fixing trucks or whatever. I think just as long as you tell your story and it's authentic to you, people will connect.
And then we'll take one last question. I'm going to butcher the name again. I'm sorry. Is it Chiezo? Am I saying that correctly?
Chiezo. I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, okay. Does anyone have one final question for Sam before we close out?
Got one. Sam, what are your thoughts of putting a reverb on the master? And on there, can I throw a sound goodizer on there? How do you feel about that?
What was the last part?
A sound goodizer, a couple sound godizers.
I don't even know what that is, to be honest.
Oh, it's the F. Well, it's on FL. You said you're on A. So yeah.
It's probably good, whatever it is. I've never put reverb on the master, but I know people do. I've never done it. Maybe I should try it. You might have the key.
Oh, no, I'm 100% joking with you.
Oh,
I'm
God.
100% joking.
I was sitting here like, man, this guy knows the mics, but the reverb on the master, I don't know. Nice, you got me.
And then to close this out, Sam, is there any who's been like your favorite artist to work with and why?
I love Breland. He's like a brother to me now. He's just like real as can be. He's a good dude. I lean towards like the people who are just real, like I could hang out with. Keith Urban, Sam Hunt. It's a lot of the country dudes. They're like, I think some of the mega stars, it's like tough to connect with them at a certain point because their lifestyle is so different than mine. Like they're complaining about like not being able to get into the Louvre without, you know, and I'm like trying to find like the best pizza in town. And I would say I do want to make sure I say that I am always shooting for like pop, like I'm trying to reach the masses with music. So what I'm saying might not be true if you want to just be an artist who plays small clubs and you don't really care about the fans. Like I don't know. I'm just giving you guys my opinion. This isn't like don't take this as like Bible verse. This is just how I did it and for what I do.
Great. So Sam, appreciate your time. It's awesome to just hear, a bit of your story and how you got to where you are. I put your Instagram into the chat, which is Sam Sumser. But if people are interested in just hearing the music you've worked on and your music, where's the
there's a playlist on Spotify called Written by Sam Sumser, which is pretty covers it all, I think. And then yeah, feel free to hit me on Instagram. I'll answer. And go UNC.
Go Heels. All right. Well, thank you, Sam. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone's time. Again, this was really awesome. I'm speaking on behalf of everyone when I say thank you, but appreciate your time and
thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
All right. See ya.
Yeah.